guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Here we go again. It's Picky Bastard Matt here, and we're going to talk through some albums and celebrate how I am always right. and so we're joined by the resident Picky Bastards over in Manchester, Nick.
Hello.
Hi, Nick.
Hello.
And Fran.
Hello, Matt. You are also a resident Picky Bastard, just so you know. Today,
Well, yeah.
I've worked out you've today been on more than normal, so you've now been the third longest serving Picky Bastard. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, you're back in hometown or home city.
That's true.
Yeah.
Although you're not
Back
at
at
HQ at the moment.
No, I'm in Hebden Bridge with the flu, and I'm dying, so it's fun.
Great.
It means, well, maybe that'll improve your opinions today.
Yeah, because I formed them all in the last 10 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about today six more albums. They're going to be US Girls in a Poem Unlimited, Idols, Joy as a Form of Resistance, Big Red Machine, Blood Orange as Negro Swan, Sugarcubes, Life's Too Good, and then I'm going to tell you about LCD Soundsystem. Sound good?
Sounds
Sweet.
good to me.
Yeah.
Did I just say sweet? Yeah. Yeah, by the way, Matt just became a doctor, so I don't, a doctor of science, which is obviously not quite as good as being a real doctor, but he is a doctor, so congratulations,
Round
Matt.
of applause.
Woo! Time for music.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, that's why I'm always going to be right.
Well, I've been a doctor for like 10 years, and you always claim I'm wrong, so I don't really buy that.
Well, it just means Fran's the least qualified then.
Ah, that's where we wanted to get to. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so I'm going to start by asking Fran a question. Which album gave you the most emotional release?
Right, well, I went back and forth between two albums for this answer, and because we've been delayed in recording, I've actually settled on Idols, which is Joy as an Act of Resistance, and I think the reason why is pretty much summed up by the album's title, Joy as an Act of Resistance. I think because some of the best songs on what is really an angry album about modern society are actually using joy as a celebration. Joy and celebration, as a tool to overcome all the shit that's going on. So just for some examples, Television is a song about the unhealthy expectations placed on women by the media, and it repeatedly tells you to love yourself. Scum kind of revels in the idea of being considered lefty scum because you give a shit about other people. There's a song called Great, which is about the nightmare of Brexit, and it has the chorus, Islam didn't eat your hamster, change isn't a crime, so won't you take my hand, sir, and sing with me in time? So, brilliant. And then the main example, I'd say, is Danny Nedelko, which it's got to be one of my songs of the year so far. Was that a disagreement or just a cough?
That was just a cough. A cough I would have cut out if you hadn't mentioned it, but thanks.
Right, okay, well, it's a good cough. So it's... Danny Nedelko is kind of a completely joyful celebration of immigration. It's written about the title, Danny Nedelko, is one of their friends who is a Ukrainian refugee. And the song just names countless examples of inspiring immigrants, and it's just a massive celebration and a call for unity. So that's one reason this was a big emotional release. And then the other is that it's absolutely fucking hilarious at times. There's a song called Never Fight a Man with a Perm, which is amazing. Mm. And there's funny lyrics throughout the album, but I'm just going to give you one example of their funny lyrics, which is brilliant. It's kind of a song about standing up to the bully in the town centre, and the verse that I loved is, me oh my, Roy, you look like a walking thyroid. You're not a man, you're a gland. You're one big neck with sausage hands. You are a top shop tyrant, even your haircut's violent. You look like you're from Love Island. You stood and the room went silent. So brilliant. So yeah, big emotional release for me. And also I'm going to make a big claim here. I say it's a contender for album of the year for me. So yeah, I could do a whole podcast on it, but I'll stop now. Someone else, let us know.
I wrote that line down and thought, Fran is really going to like this line. Just for the thyroid bit.
Fantastic.
Okay, who wants
do you
to go?
You can go, Nick.
Okay, so it's surreal because this is the first time where at least Fran and I have not been in the same room together when we're recording, and yet Fran has stolen so many of the comments I would have made about this album. It's as if he's reading my fucking notes, which is out of order. So
there you go.
The first thing I'd say is the overarching thing is this is easily an album of the year contender. I don't know what else is there. There are some other ones that are in the running, but it's not going to be. There's nothing's going to come out that's going to blow this out of the water. I'll put it that way. This is an astonishing album. I thought really, really fantastic.
Yeah,
the energy is totally amazing throughout, but it's actually lyrically that it shines most. Even though I think musically it's very, very engaging and sort of furious and frenzied, which is fantastic. I think my favorite song on the album is "I'm Scum," and it has some incredible little vignettes. Like for example. I think it says. I can't write one of the words out in this line, but I think it says, "I'll sing at fascist until my head comes off." I'm Dennis Skinner's Molotov, which is absolutely dynamite. I mean, really, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, and what a story it tells. So
absolute genius.
Amazing, absolutely amazing, and. I'm very, very disappointed to say I missed them live, and Fran's now going to rub it in by telling me how great they were, which he hasn't been able to do yet.
Well, all right. I was going to wait till the end, but okay. Gig of the year, I would say.
Really?
Absolutely incredible.
I know somebody else went to gig as well and put on their Facebook that they were the most important band in Britain right now.
And I think they are possibly. I mean, at least the most exciting band in Britain at the minute, definitely. Yeah, and the gig was amazing. Like, there's so much energy, and they did a cover of Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You," which was like the first time that song's ever been tolerable ever.
Do you know my story about that song? That's actually my worst song in history. That's my absolute most hated
I don't think
song
it would have
of
been
all
that night. I don't think it would have been that night. I think
if they can turn that around, then the greatest band ever, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's incredible. And also, I thought they were frequently absolutely hilarious. But I also wanted to say that they actually do something really remarkable at one point, which is I think the song's called June. Is it? Is that one?
Yeah, the one about the stillborn. Yeah.
Which just demonstrated that in fact they're capable of also doing songs which aren't hilarious and aren't aggressive and still say something really profound. So this repeated line, "Baby shoes for sale, never worn."
Do you know that is a Hemingway short story?
I didn't know that actually.
That is the shortest story ever written in the history of short stories, and it's often credited to Hemingway. There's a bit of argument about that, but it is the shortest short story ever written. But they still use it brilliantly, and that's an amazing song. And I'm not trying to take that away from him.
I think the whole of that is just indicates a real subtlety to the way they write, which is actually more thoughtful than you might expect out of a band that's kind of a post-punk band, really. Which you expect them just to be angry and shouting all the time, and they do something else very delicate. So that was a high point as well for me. But I can't say enough good things about it, really. It was absolutely stellar. And do
you think that's also that sort of emotional side of it, the other, like the darker side of things, is that I think that's quite a big step forward from the first album, which I liked as well. But
and in fact,
that was new for them to do those sort of really sort of intense, slower songs that were, more, which weren't humorous and weren't sort of, witty one-liners and stuff. So I think that's a big step forward for them.
It is. Although I will say I felt very uncomfortable about how I reviewed the first of their two albums, their albums, because I think
you were an idiot.
I didn't dislike it. I just said I didn't think it was that impressive, and I think on reflection, it's a lot more impressive. And this I would still say is way better than that.
Oh yeah.
But and most people I've heard have sort of echoed that. But although one or two have suggested it wasn't quite neat, deep cuts, didn't feel it like worked as well as the first one, which I thought was kind of interesting.
He likes Oxbow, so
fair enough. So anyway, it was. I feel like I'm pleased we got another chance to go with this band, and I'm very pleased we got into it, and it was my pick as well.
Well done, mate. Well done, Matt. Did you hear the first album, Matt?
Yeah, so I'd heard the first album because I've been listening to you guys review it, but I couldn't actually remember what you guys thought about it. But I remember liking it. But it was a bit uneven. There's not much more I can add to what you guys have said. This is the album I've listened to more than anything else this year.
Really?
And and for a protest album, I can't think of a better one in maybe the past 5 years. I wouldn't.
Wow.
Nathan Shaw.
Well. Well,
He's
yeah,
just coughing
no,
anyway.
not
It's
for
just
me.
he's ill. He's not being sarcastic.
Not for me. Not for me.
No, it's a contender. It's as good as that
Yeah.
album. It is as good as that album.
And yeah, you guys have hit all the points. It's fantastic. The way it starts.
Yeah.
They just seem so confident and like really up for the fight.
I mean, that's how they performed as well. Like the way they came out was just like smash her in the face. It's just they know what they're doing now, and they knew how to work with the audience. It was incredible.
I also absolutely love, and I've seen a load of their live stuff on YouTube and stuff now, and I love how non-macho they are, even though they're so loud and kind of aggressive in tone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I notice they come out on stage sometimes and actually like kiss each other on the lips as they come out, you know, and it's just an amazing gesture of like peace, and you know, I just love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know? So,
Yeah. And I've also gone deep and watched tons of their videos, and I love that the guitarist is always wearing his tighty whities, and he doesn't care about what he looks like. It's just like, fuck it, we're here
all
to.
members of the band look nothing like any other member of the band.
No.
It's just a complete ramshackle collection of people. Yeah, brilliant.
Well, we're going to have to be really careful with our album of the year episode that we'll be doing sort of January, February time, because we can't all pick.
Nice.
It'll be a very short podcast, so you know.
Right.
We'll see. There's still time. There's still time. I need to reflect as well. So
Yeah.
But really, it's a good band taking a step forward, and that's like really a big step forward creatively. So kudos to them.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Good stuff.
Right. Next, Nick, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes.
Which album seemed the most restrained?
Okay, I'm going to give this one to Blood Orange, Negro Swan. I have a kind of complicated reaction to this album. First of all, I'll just say to anyone who doesn't know that I've been a big fan of Blood Orange before, and in fact, previous iterations of what he's done as well, Test Icicles and then Lightspeed Champion, I've always been a big fan. So I don't come into it feeling totally objective, but I think the album still holds up very well to kind of me trying to be as critical as possible. I think it's very politically astute. It's another kind of collage album, which I loved. I love the fact that it was kind of had all these intercut elements of conversation on the street, or with like sounded like with academics and stuff about various topics around the themes of the album as a whole. So, but when I say, I mean, in terms of the restrained thing, I think it's just very delicate a lot of the time, and I think that's interesting given how politically charged some of the stuff it's trying to get into is. You know, I think that worked really well. So there are lots of the album I absolutely love. There is, however, one huge scratch in the record.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Okay, well, you'll see in a minute, won't you? I absolutely hated one of the singles, the single Chewing Gum, which was the original single, I think first one that came out for the album. I hated it. I just think it's the worst song he's ever put out. And the feature on it, A$AP Rocky is the feature on it, just does something completely out of place for anything the Blood Orange has ever done before, in the sense that it's just a completely, to me, from my perception, it was just a completely sort of line of misogynistic cliches, really, in what he was talking about. And it just sounded really, really tired and just not of the style and the freshness of what Dev Hynes, his name is, has been able to do in the past. Also, I thought that actually, it wasn't just that musically, the beat was actually quite weak as well, honestly. And even the video for this, funnily enough, I saw the video for it as well. I didn't even like the video. So it's just like the whole gamut of everything about it is just poor. But that was actually, unfortunately for me, the first song from the album I came across. I saw it on an American late night TV show performance. I don't know who it was now. I can't remember which one. And I just thought immediately, this is just really going off the rails. But thankfully, the album otherwise does really, really well. The weakest element of the album, I would say, and across all the Blood Orange albums, though, is still the structure of his beats, I would say. They seem often quite stilted and as if it's not really his... I mean, he's a multi-instrumentalist in many, many levels, and he's a fantastic singer and all this, but he's just not really a creator of beats in the same way, and I don't think that's apparent at certain points. But there's still lots of great things in the rhythm of the piece, but just it's not quite up to the par of the rest of it. So yeah, generally, I really liked it with that caveat. What does anyone else think?
I can dive in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've also been following Dev Hynes for a long time. I was massively into Test Icicles.
Yeah, fantastic album.
And then Lightspeed Champion came along, and I was like, well, this is quite different, but I'm still on board. And I've still with him, but consistently what I find his weakness is the ability to focus on an album and kind of get the reins on it, to draw it into something that's a bit smaller, because they're often 15 tracks long.
Yeah, he does do long pieces of work. Yeah, definitely.
And because of his style, it often it meanders through the album, and it doesn't ever really feel like there's any conviction about the piece as a whole.
Wow, statement.
But I always love listening to his albums, but I always end up dropping the album more and then end up listening to specific tracks, which I don't want to do, because that's not necessarily how he intends it, but that's
or how Picky Bastards works. So.
Yeah, or how we work here.
Yeah,
but it's not permitted. Fran is making it clear.
That is often what happens for me with him. But some of the tracks on this are fantastic. But it's just, there are parts where I feel like it loses way, or it just I zone out, because it's not getting me to listen to it actively.
I'll just interject and say I understand what you're saying, I think, to some extent, about the way when you talk about meandering. I think that's quite interesting, but to me, I actually love the way it drifts in and out. And I think you're right, though. If somebody was to say to me in most cases they say to me, which song are we on right now, I don't know. I'd know. I feel like it's one long sort of stream of stuff, and intercut little collage pieces, so I don't have a problem with that personally, but I see what you're saying anyway. I just points, just saying.
Yeah. And I get that also, that resonates. I do, I think I enjoy listening to the album as a whole. It's just sometimes I want to be able to, I don't know, walk away from it and say, this is what this was about as a whole. And sometimes it's a struggle, because by the end, I'm just it's washed over me a bit.
Right.
But that said, Saint, I could listen to all day, every day. I thought that was such a good song. But it's also, again, it's almost a symptom, because there's so many layers in it. There's so much stuff going on in it. And it's, again, I think a lack of focus. So that's kind of where I ended up falling with it. Okay. I think it's maybe unfair because of what else was on the playlist as well.
Yeah.
Because it was directly before Idols. And so that is very direct, and exactly what it's going to be about.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe it felt a little bit victim to that.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for me to cut in, if you don't mind, because my kind of first point is that I felt almost sorry for this album landing in the middle of a playlist that I'm not going to go into too much about what I think about everything, but a playlist that I really, really enjoyed in general. I feel like on other lists, like the last list we did, this would have stood out a lot more, and I would have spent a lot more time with it. But because obviously it focused on a load of themes that I'm really interested into, and it should be the kind of thing I like, but although it's got a lot of positive elements, it largely washed over me, really. Nick, you mentioned the collage albums, and for me, this just felt a little bit like a second-rate version of Solange's Seat at the Table. And I don't want to go too harsh on this album.
Solange before, you know that, do you?
Yeah.
He did produce the previous album, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to be too harsh on it, because I didn't hate it, I didn't dislike it at all. But I think it's quite an admirable idea, but it was kind of missing a musical pull for me, and that's maybe ties into what you were saying about the beats. I quite enjoyed Nappy Wonder and Holy Will, but I just want to say there's one really negative thing I'm going to say, and it's a bit like Nick's, but it's a different song. This album just reminded me again how fucking shit Diddy is. Why does Diddy even exist? It's, for me, Hope, the song that he features on, is the only really bad song on this album. All he does, all he ever does, all he did on Biggie, all he did on his own albums is say yo over and over again, and then repeat the title of the fucking song. He just keeps saying, I give you hope, yo, 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 and it's just fucking shit. So I think maybe in general...
You said Rocky feature wasn't a problem for you then?
It didn't stand out as much as that one, because I already hate Diddy. So I do know the misogynistic lines did stick out to me, but I think maybe that's a problem across the whole lot. I don't think the features worked that well in general, and I think that was a problem.
I mean, the features are a problem rather than the misogynistic language, because I don't. Well, it's really jarring to me. Blood Orange doesn't do that kind of stuff. It hasn't.
No.
That way, and it's just completely out of place. Yeah. Anyway, it's not to labour the point.
And I think saying yo 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 was completely out of place as well. So yeah,
fair enough. Okay, all right. So
that was mixed. So how about Fran? You can tell me what you like least on the list.
Well, I liked Blood Orange least, so we passed that by. What I could do is because I've just spoken about how much I love Idols, but I'm still not 100% sure if that is my favourite on the playlist. There's two that I absolutely loved.
Yeah, go for it.
So you're going to get a bit bored of my positivity on this podcast.
Yeah,
it's not like me.
Everyone's in shock you're being positive at all, so don't worry about it.
But like, I absolutely adored the Big Red Machine album, which is self-titled Big Red Machine. So it's Justin. For anyone who doesn't know, it's Justin Vernon, as in Bon Iver, and it's Aaron Dessner from The National. But I think it took bits of what both of them do, and it blended them together to make something really original and unique. It was nearly the other choice for my, the one that gave me the most emotional release, because I think it's a really emotional album, and rarely for these artists that is quite often like a joyful abandon type emotion, which is just not really in their armory usually. So I think they really let go on this album, and that really works for them. Gratitude, the second song, is like Danny Delco, one of my favourite songs of the year, definitely. I think it's completely euphoric. And then there's a few others that are really euphoric. I Won't Run From It, Melt, Airstrip. And then there's a couple that are more closer to what Bon Iver usually do, like Forest Green and OMDB. But yeah, in general, I thought it was all great, apart from maybe that Hymnostic song I wasn't a big fan of. But it's really nice to see a collaborative album work really well. And for me, it's another potential album of the year. So there you go.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Go for it, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, the album grew on me. I'll put it that way. My initial reaction was not that favourable, really. And I think it took me a while to work out what the problem was, actually, because I thought it was fairly...
Because there is no problem.
I thought it was fairly clever and interesting sort of song construction. But I want to say something which I'm glad Fran's not in the room with me now. I've just really realised that I just don't like Justin... Is it Justin Vernon? I just don't like his... songwriting to singing style. I don't like Bon Iver. I just realised. I just made this revelation.
Mate, you've known that for ages. No. Every time we've talked about Bon Iver, you're like, they weren't very good after that song. Or, even though you try and copy them with a few of the songs on your album, and I admit to that. That's
an amazing impression of me. Thanks very much. It's just like me. I don't think I realised that. I really came home to me that there's anytime he's involved, I'm immediately sort of feeling frustrated because his singing style, the falsetto is too forced. It just gets irritating.
Jealousy does not suit you.
And so the other elements of the band, the other guy, I can't remember his name either, I'm afraid, sorry.
Aaron Dessner from The National.
Yeah, I know he's from The National, yeah. I thought he provided some sort of fresh and sort of interesting stuff to it, and I did like OMDB. I actually think Gratitude was one of my least favourite songs on the album because it was so Bon Iver-like to me.
It wasn't like Bon Iver.
It was vocally. I think it was vocally.
Well, yeah, because it was Justin Vernon singing.
There you go then. There's the problem right there.
Yeah.
I have to say, God, I'm really restraining myself. I feel like...
Don't restrain yourself.
He sounds like... it came to me that he sounds to me like a modern 21st century Enya. Because
you're such a dick.
Because he's so like syrupy, like just sort of tra-la-la-ing through things. It just gets so grating. It gets so grating, and there's no sort of grit behind it, and it just got to me. Really got to me. I'm saying that in the context of the album over time, because of the fresh stuff that was in things like OMDB, improved, and I sort of did get through it a few times. I don't think I'll go back to it. But Bon Iver,
are you looking forward to hearing it on vinyl when you come to my house next week?
I don't think I can be there next week, actually. Sorry, I just realised. No, it's not going to happen now. So just Bon Iver's involvement is a problem from the start, and it didn't really get past that for me. Sorry. Not that sorry, but slightly sorry.
Yeah, fair enough.
That was good. So I actually do like Bon Iver quite a lot. I was obsessed with his last album.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It was my least favorite of his albums, but I still liked it a lot.
It was fantastic, and I really liked the direction he's going in. But to me, this felt like an extension of Bon Iver and potential like a next album from him. Because it was to me, it was a lot of it was quite similar to 22 Million, and then it had.
But there's not as much I don't think there's as much sort of euphoria in 22 Million. I think it's a lot more slow sort of.
Yeah. So it's like
he needs to do less euphoria though. He does too much goddamn euphoria. It's all.
He barely does any euphoria, man. Most of what he does is really miserable.
Oh, it's just.
Even when he's happy, it sounds pretty sad.
Tonally.
So he's tonally euphoric. Anyway, sorry, Matt, carry on.
No, that's all right. I like the album a lot, but I definitely wasn't obsessed with it. I think I'm falling somewhere between you guys.
Yeah.
Like the times where it connected most with me would be when I had nothing to do and I would put my headphones on and then just go walk and have it on. And I think it's a perfect album for kind of that.
Nick doesn't walk, so that could be the problem. That's why Nick doesn't like it. He never walks.
I walk all the time. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. And so I think like the sprawling nature of the album, because I think it's quite like expansive and it roams in a way. Like I tried also doing this with Blood Orange because I often find music really like resonates when I try do that. And Blood Orange just kind of fell at the wayside a little bit. But this kind of I really connected to in those moments.
You hurt me with your words right now. Really, Blood Orange is so much stronger album than Blood Red Machine.
No.
And the other big thing with this is like it's very even quality wise. I think all of the tracks I enjoyed listening to.
Yeah.
They didn't really drop the ball, which in the case of Blood Orange, like
they never
a lot of it was. Well, no, like I said, some of the tracks.
I don't believe that. I know you don't believe that, Fran. So don't give me that.
Yo.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting that this is the fruition of like a 10-year project. Because it doesn't.
Yeah, so you know about the project, do you? Because I thought that was quite interesting when you said about it being like a roaming album. Because they're doing like the People Project, which is a big sort of streaming service where people can, put works in progress on. And this was kind of the first album to be released as part of that project. So it did feel like some of it's like you say, like it's roaming. It's still sort of in flux, if you know what I mean, which I thought was really interesting, actually.
Yeah, I would be really interested to see what happens next with them as collaborators, and especially as they invite more people in to work with them.
Yeah,
because I think that's got the potential to do some really interesting things. And I just think now that it was almost like they played it a little bit safe, but it was a good album. It's still good.
Wow, absolutely.
I love the way you're saying that.
Absolutely good.
Yeah. That'll be the thing on the sleeve to sell it.
Yeah.
It's still good.
Just good.
It's 100% good.
Yeah. We can put. It doesn't deserve an exclamation mark either. It's just
deserves 2.
No,
I hate exclamation marks, but I would give this 2 exclamation marks.
2
and a star.
And a star.
And a little boat or something.
Fair enough.
Okay. Well, speaking of good, shall we do Sugarcubes? Life's Too Good?
Go for it. Do you want to start?
Nice segue.
Sure.
I like it.
Sure. So yeah, this is I can't remember when this was released. Is that like early 90s?
88.
88. Okay.
Yeah.
A bit earlier than early 90s. And so this is obviously one of Bjork's first bands. So they're all from Iceland in the Reykjavik post-punk scene. And I had heard, I think, Birthday like once before, because it was a massive single for them from this, and I think, guess what brought Bjork to the attention of the rest of
you weren't born.
Yeah, I wasn't born. Music kind of assists
That's what
beyond.
that's
and
what
it was
recording
originally-
is, Fran. Yeah.
Just when you said it was a massive single, I was like, but you were not even in the womb, were you?
No, but I can still read.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Doctor Matt.
Yeah, he schooled you there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
True. I'll let you off.
And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And what I think enjoyed most about it, and which I wasn't really expecting, was it was kind of the fun side of post-punk. It wasn't, oh, let's all be really sad and be like Joy Division, who I also love, but it was more the kind of playful aspect, which I wasn't necessarily expecting, considering some of Bjork's music can also be quite morose or like dark. And this was dark in moments, but the kind of interplay between her and the male spoken word guy reminded me more of like the B-52s. And
How interesting.
I
never would've
enjoyed
called that.
I enjoyed the B-52s a lot.
I only know they're like, the really famous, or is it? They are the ones who did like Love Shack or something like that.
Yeah, they did Love Shack.
That's all I know. So that's not my favorite.
Rock Lobster, yeah.
Yes, the massive hits.
So I think without that kind of interplay between the two of them, it would have been a bit more straightforward, but I think less likable, because I think that added a bit of like fun elements to it. And because I think the music by itself is, you can see elements like, especially in like Birthday, they had like chimes, or I don't know what they're called, but they sound pretty much like they're taken straight from Atmosphere in Joy Division.
Right.
But then they're put in a much more fun, and like in the other songs, it sounds like some certain elements are from like The Cure, but then
I picked up on The Cure.
but then like the way they sing and the way they do it is just kind of completely changes the tone of the music. And so all in all, I thought the album's a bit weird. It's a little bit dated, but it's really enjoyable. I'm not sure if I'm going to be rushing back to listen to it, but I had fun with it for the past, I guess, month and a half.
All right, go for it, Fran. What'd you rate?
Well, I'm really surprised to say that I absolutely love this album as well. I thought it was, for something, you've just said it was dated, but for something that's 30 years old, it sounds really fresh to me and doesn't seem to have suffered from the dating we talk about a lot.
No.
I really liked hearing Bjork's voice over something that's a bit more accessible than a lot of the stuff she does nowadays, because, with the albums that I've listened to before by her, like Biophilia and stuff, like I really need to be in a mood for that album, whereas this, I enjoyed it every time I heard it. You mentioned Birthday, I thought that was great. I really liked Delicious Demon, which for me sounded like it was the Talking Heads featuring Bjork. I was like really into that track. I thought that was great. And my favourite was Sick for Toys, which was fucking disturbing and weird, but bizarre, just brilliant. So a really fun, enjoyable album. And I'd say, other than Biggie and Nas, probably my favourite classic album that we've done, in Picky Bastards.
Oh.
Really loved it, really liked it. Okay. So I was in a good mood this month, people,
You were?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Until I said that about Bon Iver, then you're not.
No, because I just know you're wrong. It doesn't upset me when you're wrong. You can be wrong all you want.
Okay, good. I'll enjoy that. I thought this album was all right. I wasn't that moved by it really, because one thing was Bjork's voice, which I do like a lot of Bjork stuff, but her voice is so distinctive that it was a bit hard to hear past it to the musical basis of the songs sometimes. I just felt like it was a lot of... I mean, this is not their fault. This is really just the power of what she's got vocally. It's kind of overwhelmed the musical side of it a little bit more, the other instrumentation. So I felt like I wasn't really tuning in as much as I tried to into what the Sugarcubes as a band were doing, so that became kind of a challenge. I think the fact that you just said 88 actually is quite interesting to me, because the released in 1988, because I actually would have put it a little bit later than that. So in a sense, thinking of it coming out in 88 actually seems to make it very sort of fresh for that time, ahead of the curve of that time. Because I think if you'd said 93, 94, 95, I would still believed you, so that's to its credit. And generally I did sort of enjoy it. I don't know that I'll rush back to it really. It was fine. I wasn't that moved by it. But I will say that I thought the production of things like the drums and that were still were quite hard to hear past that sort of late 80s sort of level of quality. You know, it sounded very much of that time, and it sounded.
You just said it sounded like it was from '95.
No, that early 90s, late 80s are still not present to now. I'm saying it still sounds old to me.
I get you.
So, and for example, the drums in that sound very small on it compared to the Sabbath from last time, even though the drums from the Sabbath was maybe 20 years earlier or 15 years earlier or something. So,
yeah.
You know, it was the style of the time, and it was a stylish kind of album, and it fits with that. And I enjoyed it, but I don't think I'll be turning back to it that often. Honestly, it was fine.
Do you think the drums needed to be big on this? Because I felt like it was fine for them to lay around in the background for this.
I mean, it's okay for them to do that. That's a musical choice. That's fine. I suppose in the context of what I said earlier about Bjork's voice being a huge sort of overwhelming element, if the drums sound a bit on the small side, then it sounds that only underlines that problem for me.
I think when you've got a voice like Bjork's, but that's only from when we look back at it, I think, because if you've got, at the time when, you know, I think I read about it, they'd had one band before, and then they got this band together, but it was meant to be more like a fun version of what they had before. And I think at this time, like Bjork's, obviously their biggest tool is Bjork's voice. So, I mean, it's kind of not surprising that's what dominates. And I think,
and you know, and it's not as if her talent isn't worth going off and doing those other things. And, you know, and this is a way of indicating that that's the case, that she's clearly the thing that stands out. All I'm saying is, on its own, there's one element that sort of leaps out at you over the other elements, and things like the production on the drums don't help to even that out. That's what I'm saying. But I don't hate it. It was fine. But I'm not that moved by it.
Yeah.
So
cool. All right, we have one more left.
Yes.
US girls.
Yes.
Yeah. Who wants to dive in?
Maybe who went first?
Fran.
I went first. Yeah, I went first. Do you want me to go?
Yeah,
go for it.
Okay. So I think it's a weird comparison, but in some ways I want to compare it to Idols a little bit. I found it's an album also fascinated with the modern era, and although it's obviously packaged quite differently and put forward quite differently, I think it does have some links. I think it also, you know, it's also very angry, but Idols kind of wears its anger on its sleeve, while US Girls sort of hides it a little bit with a sort of danceable pop tunes. And I also think its anger is a bit more focused than Idols. It's a quite feminist album, and it's pretty powerful for that, I think. My favourite track was Pearly Gates, which is built around like the ridiculous notion of a woman getting to heaven and being judged by a load of men over whether she's worthy of coming into heaven. And I think they're kind of trying to talk about, you know, some certain administrations we see in the world now that are telling women what they're worthy of and what they can do with their bodies and that kind of thing. And then there's Velvet for Sale, which is a kind of song about domestic abuse, but it's turned into a like really dark revenge tale. And then what I found really interesting was it's MAH, which was Mad as Hell, which I don't know if either of you picked up on this, but apparently it's a song about her disappointment with Obama's 8 years in power and like how he hid his less liberal deeds behind like his charm and his smile and stuff. So I found that really interesting.
I didn't realise that. No.
Yeah. Listen again. You'll hear like the 8 years stuff. A lot of stuff about 8 years, and you can hear what she's talking about when you know. But it's not a obvious what she's talking about a lot of the time on this album. But I mean, because I knew that, I kind of read into the lyrics a bit. And but yeah, again, I think it's really political, but it's also quite a joy to listen to. So now, I've seen a few people pick this is their album of the year. It wouldn't quite make it up for me, but I do think it's really, really strong. So, you know, I think we've done remarkably well this playlist, for me, anyway. So,
okay.
Thank you, people, for choosing these amazing albums.
Yeah.
Although I picked this one.
So I'll go in. I guess.
I
like the album, and I liked it even though it had a sort of danceable underlying sort of drive that is not something I'm that interested in really musically. I think it still worked. MAH is it MAH?
Yeah.
Is one that I was kind of won over to, even though it sounded a lot like kind of an ABBA tune. But with a political underpinning, evidently, from what you're saying, and I could see that there was going to be that kind of thing in the tone of a lot of the songs on the album. So yeah, I liked it. I mean, for me to I'm not an ABBA fan, so for me to get into a song like that is yeah, exactly. That's staggering.
It wasn't an ABBA song, but
I know, but I'm just saying for it to be that kind of thing, and still for me to be into it at all is, shows that it's done something pretty successfully. I liked, is there one Incidental Boogie? I think it's called.
Yeah.
I was quite into that as well. I thought that was probably one of the strongest songs on the album. So yeah, it had these it was a little bit slightly darker, overtly darker. With this kind of like little sort of bursts of energy cutting through. I do think the Idols association is valid. It's a different way of approaching the same problem, isn't it, of what's going on in the world at the moment. So I was going to mention that as well. So yeah, I don't know that it's an album. Well, it wouldn't be in my albums of the year, and I don't know that I'll go back to it a hell of a lot. But I think it's something I'll probably come across again. It was I can see the appeal of it, and I think there's quite a lot of depth to it, hidden depths,
Yeah. It is one that I'm glad in a way we had, because obviously we had some delays filming, recording this podcast, and I think a couple of the albums actually I might not have been as into. Both Idols and this were kind of, I really liked them, but then in the last couple of weeks they've grown on me again, and I think I might have been a bit more miserable if we'd recorded on the day we were supposed to. So, your fault.
Yeah, I'm actually I agree with that. Although Idols grabbed me straight away, this would have been maybe languishing near the bottom of the albums for me, but after a couple extra weeks, I think it's my second favorite.
Nice,
really.
It's
I thought it was really, like, you guys have talked kind of about the messages behind it, and I think it was really interesting to see the way that the different ways of approaching it, and then although a lot of it is quite like danceable, the different styles of kind of pop music that she used. Yeah, it was very diverse, and I enjoyed every time she tried something new. I think she was successful. From whether the song sounded more kind of like the ABBA aspects of pop to more, there's some like Pearly Gates is more 90s R&B. I felt like
Pearly Gates is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really great. And then I also, between Pearly Gates and Rage of Plastic were my favorites.
Yeah.
Because I thought that had almost David Bowie-like elements to it, the way that the backing vocals and the saxophone were coming in.
I can certainly see Bowie influence on this album, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so she's aping all the right people, I think, and doing something still her own and unique. And it was great. And like the finishing track of having an 8-minute song to finish the album, but only having 2 minutes of singing. And then just allowing the kind of instruments of the music to just take you out, I think shows that she was kind of really happy and confident with she knows exactly what she was doing with this album. And I think I had never listened to her before, and I'm definitely going to continue following her after this.
Yeah, I mean, I've read quite a bit about her again, and just to hear, apparently this is like, before it's always been very sort of idiosyncratic and quite quiet stuff that she's done, and this is a massive departure for her. So it's what the other stuff will be like, I don't know, but it's apparently very different to this. Still political and still quite feminist and whatever, but it's the sonically it's very different apparently. So I'd be interested to listen, definitely.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if she stays on this track or I haven't listened to any of the other stuff, so maybe I should go and see how different it is.
Did either of you see a sort of linkage to Everything at all?
Thematically,
that resounding no.
I can see what you're saying. It didn't really occur to me, but I see what you're saying. I mean, that they have quite a political bent that's kind of hidden behind a lot of danceable music. So in broad terms, I see that. I mean, I wouldn't compare the odyssey of the way everything creates songs, though. I feel like they're a bit more off the beaten path with the way they create the tracks. I prefer them, but I see what you're saying.
Found the sort of all dark elements that you could really dance to and stuff is quite and obviously that's becoming more of a common thing. I think you could say that about Nadine Shah and some of the songs, but it's just, I saw that, I did think about that link quite a lot. I mean, I probably prefer this slightly to Everything, but
wow, that's a huge thing. You're insane, but never mind.
I think
there was no songs that sounded like Muse, so
there were no Everything either. So I agree with you.
I think the parallels are stronger with Metronomy. as opposed to everything.
I don't know them that well, to be honest.
No, I don't either.
We might visit them at some point in the future.
Okay, right.
Anyway, so I guess now we're going to talk a little bit about LCD.
Are we in agreement before we get into that, though, that before we get into LCD Soundsystem, that this is the better of a playlist as a whole than the previous one? I know what Fran's going to say to that, because he hated the last one, didn't he?
My favourite playlist that we've done, this one. Yeah.
I think I would put this as... I struggle to remember what we talk about, to be honest, but this is by far, like... it will be one of my favorites, if not my favorite.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed every single album to a certain extent, and somehow
I remember all the ones before you even joined us, Matt. Like, and we've done, twice as many episodes. But I remember this is still the best playlist we've done. I think personally, out of all of them.
Wow. Yeah. No, I thought it was great as well, and I got something out of every one of them basically. Yeah, I would say that, and but yeah, the Idols album towered above all the others. That's the only thing. To me, so there was it was kind of one album playlist with a load of follow-ups that were good as well.
I'm not going to fight. It's amazing. I mean, there was ones that were close to it to me, but it's absolutely amazing. So,
all right. So sorry, I cut you off there, Matt. What do you want? No. Soundsystem?
Yes, I do. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about their background, and then I'll tell you why I love them so much. So they've been around since the early 2000s, although James Murphy and the rest of the band have been hanging around New York, and they established a record label before that, mostly as DJs. But then they came together for the self-titled album, and pretty much every single album subsequently has been kind of critically acclaimed and gone down really, really well. And they've kind of developed this... they have this following, and their music, I feel like, and the way they approach it is very much partnered with their the fact that they're from New York. The fact the band is a New York band, and it's really woven into their DNA, and they end up singing a lot about New York as well, or life in New York, and so that, unsurprisingly, as someone who lives in New York, a lot of that resonates with me, but I've been into them from before that as well. I think there's a really interesting story about them, about how they broke up, because a lot of people think they broke up just to sell out Madison Square Garden after their third album, which could be true. But he's also, James Murphy, who's the leader of the band, is also a control freak, and he's obsessed with this idea of having the correct arc of the band, and so finishing before the band becomes obsolete.
Right.
And so their third album had been one of the most successful they'd had, and so then they were able to book Madison Square Garden, and they did this crazy 4-hour gig there. And so finishing after that, I guess to me, from the outside, also seems like an appropriate time to finish.
Yeah.
But then David Bowie intervened and told him he should just reform the band.
Fantastic.
Sorry, what did you say?
He told told James Murphy he should just reform the band, because he was going to be a producer for Black Star. And so they were friends, and then I guess he was sad and wanted to make music but didn't know how to. And so David Bowie just said, go make your band again.
Go and do it.
And then they came back, and they actually came back with it. I wouldn't say it's their strongest album, but it's a really good album. And
is that American Dream?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I feel like that's a hard thing to do after a break. And most bands that do come back don't convert, I don't think.
Yeah.
But really for me, I don't know. I'm just going to talk a little bit about All My Friends, because that's my favorite song ever made.
Okay.
Nice.
It's like a poppy and fun song, but then since I've kind of emigrated and grown older and had have good and bad experiences, the lyrics have kind of gained more meaning, and it resonates more and more. And I think it also doesn't lose its place in time, because I think it resonates more and more as people are like obsessed with not missing out on any activities or like what's going on, and that people are like trapped on the digital side of like their life. And I think the way he's talking about aging and trying to keep pace, really kind of speaks to that feeling, and also the feeling of like losing actual real human contact as well, but then also feeling like you are in contact with people. So yeah, I'll be really interested to see what you guys think of it, because it is quite dancey and it's quite minimalistic in some elements. And the other thing I wanted to mention is really they're a live band, and so I don't think the playlist really does them justice. But I tried to add so I saw them once at Reading after the first album, and then since they reformed, they did they're basically on the year they reformed, they ended up doing 30 days at a new relatively small venue, because
Wow.
they've kind of swung the other way from after they've done Madison Square Gardens. They've done that, and they want to give people.
That's great, isn't it? That's brilliant.
Yeah. And so
wow,
they spread it out over a year, but they basically spent a month doing shows, and everyone was sold out.
Remember your first episode? Actually, we asked you what your gig of the year was. That was what you chose, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's a whole kind of going to see them. I'm not into the spiritual side of things, but it's very transcendent. Everyone is happy and sad, and it feels very cleansing. It's very much like what they talk about with Dance Yourself Clean. It's
Great.
Wow.
Right. What do you guys think?
Fran, go for it.
Me? Okay, well, I would absolutely love to have something negative to say, given it's been like a sickeningly positive episode for me.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything negative to say. The only negative I have actually is that I feel like an idiot for not giving them a chance earlier. I think there's a line in Losing My Edge when he says something about the first person to play Daft Punk to the Rock Kids, and that kind of summed up where they sort of sit for me. Like, he's somewhere between being a dance artist, a DJ, and being a rock star. And I think lyrically he's very witty and dry, but at times he has like a really emotional pull. My favorite track was Someone Great, which is a really good example of that sort of emotional pull. I also really liked, actually, Dance Yourself Clean is outstanding, I think. Absolutely brilliant. A great way to kick off the playlist, because one song that I'm not massive on is Daft Punk Is Playing at My House, which was the big single for them. And I think that's why I haven't spent a lot of time with them, because I'd only really heard that song. So to start with Dance Yourself Clean was great, because it just kind of made me realise that they weren't all just that.
I felt obligated to put it on.
I get that. Yeah, you've got to do it, haven't you? But yeah, I mean, I loved All My Friends, which you mentioned. I loved Home. I loved I Can Change. Apart from Daft Punk's Playing My Hazard, I wasn't massive on New York, I Love You, which I think I don't know, I imagine you love that song. Seems you finished the playlist with it, so I apologise, but it wasn't. Yeah,
I mostly finished it because they always finish their gigs with it.
Right, okay.
So I thought it was appropriate.
I thought that one felt a little bit throwaway compared to some of the rest of the playlist, but overall, I was a massive fan, and I kind of want to know which album I should be buying for myself. So tell me, Matt, which one?
It's impossible.
Well, I want an answer. If my favourite songs are Someone Great and Dance Yourself Clean, are they on the same album?
Hold on.
Oh God.
Someone Great, and let me look.
They're on the.
That's on Sound of Silver.
And
no, This Is Happening. They're on the two different albums.
Yeah, it's the second and third albums are where it peaks.
Right, I'll buy them both.
So just get them both. Wow. Well, listen to them both first, and then.
No, he's just going to buy them. He's just totally
about it. Playing vinyl, you know what I'm like.
So let me jump in. I really generally enjoyed this, and I've really found it extremely addictive. And I think what you've both said about the sort of the Daft Punk Is Playing at My House sort of model of that hit, I totally see why that's what's been sold as the band as a whole. And that's kind of unfortunate, really, because that song is extremely addictive, but it almost gets to the point. Sorry, it almost gets to the point where it's slightly grating, honestly, because it just loops around. It's just a little bit too staccato for me and a little bit too tight. But anyway, that's to dwell on the negative, just because there's been so much positivity in this podcast in general.
I know.
Overall, I thought it was really, really great. I don't know if there's any particular songs over the ones you've already mentioned, like All My Friends. Someone great I was going to mention as well. I thought it was just. I thought it was somebody who seemed really in control of what they were doing. Like, there was nothing sort of left to chance when you talked about him. But did you say something about maybe being control freak earlier or something? Did you think?
Yeah.
That's not surprising,
is
it?
Yeah, it seems like he really, really, and they, I assume, have a very, very clear target they're aiming at, and they seem to hit it. So I really enjoyed it. I don't know that I would necessarily buy. My selection of vinyl stuff is much smaller list than Fran's. He buys everything on vinyl.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it, and I will go back to it definitely. Yeah, and I would look to find it out. I would like to find the album I could go from start to finish off, because playlists are difficult in that sense, aren't they? You're jumping around a little bit, even though I think it was a well put together one. What's the album? Is it the set? This Is Happening? Is that what we decided?
Sound of Silver or This Is Happening.
Okay.
Or American Dream, or the self-titled one.
They also have a 46 minute mix.
Oh yeah.
Which is also fantastic as well.
Okay, great. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Cheers, Matt.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with This Is Happening, just because that's the first one my eyes fell upon. I'm going to listen to that start to finish, and just see how it works as an album collectively, because that's my sort of interest is to see what they do when they have that time to have, when you talk about the arc of the band and the arc of the album, So, but yeah, overall, I loved it. So thank you very much.
I'm gonna make you tally something up now, right? Okay. So, Someone Great is on what album?
I don't know.
No, this is going to take too long. I'll do it later. We'll do it later.
Sound of Silver, that's on.
Dance Yourself Clean.
I'd say
Clean's on. This Is Happening.
Home.
Home is on. This Is Happening.
All My Friends.
All My Friends on Sound of Silver. So you got 2 and 2.
Yeah.
I Can Change.
I Can Change is on. This Is Happening. 3-2 to This Is Happening.
This Is Happening. That's what I'm buying.
All right. Wow. Very
Easy.
scientific process.
I hope that was fun, listeners.
Yeah, that was fascinating, I'm sure. So, okay, I think we're coming to the end then, are we? We just got to talk about next time.
Next time out.
We promise to be much more abusive next time, because I feel like it's just not going to work if we're actually friendly.
Well, it's nice today. It was like a big group hug. I've been feeling really ill, and I needed that. So thank you guys. I feel emotionally touched. That sounds wrong. You know what I mean?
I wish you hadn't said that.
Next time we need to get angry first.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Fair enough.
Just call Nick a dick.
Thanks. Yeah, you did do that this episode, didn't you? So,
that makes me feel good, though.
You're a dick too.
Oh.
Right. Okay. Next time. Matt, what have you got next time?
So next time, I've suggested Black Belt Eagle Scout with Mother of My Children, and No Name with Room 25.
And I have got Moses Sumney's Aromanticism and Anna Calvi's Hunter.
And the classic next time will be Erykah Badu's Baduism. I was going to say what year it's from, but I've forgotten, so I'm not. And I will be telling you why I love Frightened Rabbit. And yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us. Follow us on the playlist at bit.ly/Picky Bastards playlist.
Yeah, and Twitter at Picky Bastards.
Yeah. And I guess
one.
we'll see you next time out.
Cheers.
It should be within a month.
Nice.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.